The soil of Magnolia Bend is mostly sand, which means that water percolates down through it and out of the root zone very quickly. This makes it difficult for us to keep plants sufficiently hydrated. I think what we need is some way to provide small amounts of water at frequent intervals. And the best way to do that is going to be a drip irrigation system. So that's what we're going to work on in the next few videos. In part 1, we'll set up the connection to the existing water supply. In part 2, we'll install the pipes and valves that form the backbone of the system. Part 3, we will add the headers and drip tubing that span the individual crop rows. And then finally in part 4, we'll connect the electronics and dial in the automation. So the first thing we have to do is figure out how we're going to connect the irrigation system to the water supply. Now we get our water from a well, so obviously we need to connect to it somehow, but the question is where? As luck would have it, here on the back side of the well house, we have a PVC riser and a hose bib. This is going underground and just coming underneath the well house, straight out and up. So if we cut this and connect our system to this, we're connecting it directly to the well. And what makes it even better is that they kept this line a full 1 inches all the way up until here, where they reduced it with a threaded fitting to 3/4 so that they could screw the faucet on, because these are 3/4. But it's 1 inch all the way down back to the well. So we've got a full 1 inch line coming directly from the well to here. And if we tie our irrigation system into that, we'll get the advantage of a 1 inch flow rate for our entire system. So now that we know how we're going to connect our irrigation system to the water supply, let's go over our setup. This 1 inch pipe is the pipe coming underground from the well that we just looked at. To it, we'll connect this 1 inch by 1 inch by 3/4 inch T. The 3/4 inch part will come up to a 3/4 inch ball valve, then to this 3/4 inch 90 slip and threaded elbow, so that we can screw on the new hose bib, because I still want a hose bib there. And this riser for the hose bib, we're actually going to connect it directly to the well house itself so it can't move. Then from this 1 inch part of the T, we'll come off 1 inch to the elbow, come up to a 1 inch ball valve. This ball valve will operate as the master shutoff for the entire irrigation system. In other words, if I turn this off, nothing after this will get water, so I can work on the irrigation system if I need to change something or add something. I can turn this off without having to turn off the entire well, because that'll turn off the water for the whole house. So we come out of that ball valve to a union. These unions, they're slip unions, but you can unscrew them. So imagine you've got 1 inch pipe on each end. Normally, if you wanted to change a fitting, you would have to cut the pipe and re-glue something. But with this, you can just unscrew this nut and slide it off, and you don't have to cut anything to take what's after it off. So we come out of this union and go into this adapter to go from slip to threaded male connection, and that's going to screw into the bottom of this brass device, which is a PVB, a pressure vacuum breaker. What this does is prevents dirty water from the irrigation side from backflowing into your clean drinking water with the rest of the well system. Because think of it like this, like when you use a straw, a drinking straw, and you suck liquid up through it, what you're doing is basically creating a vacuum inside the straw. That's why the liquid goes up the straw against gravity, right? Well, the same thing can happen in this system. If for some reason a vacuum is created because the well breaks or some other pipe breaks or anything could happen, we don't want that dirty water getting pulled back up through here. This prevents that in, I think, 2 ways. I think it has a check valve in it, so it allows water to flow one way, but if it tries to start flowing backwards the wrong way, it'll close that valve. Also, it has like an air valve thing in it where if, like with a straw analogy, imagine you're sucking liquid through the straw, but now imagine you poke a hole in the straw right at the top. I'm sure you've tried to use a straw that has like a hole in it. It just sucks air through it, right? You can't create a vacuum in it. And that's what this does. If it starts getting a vacuum inside it, the air valve basically starts pulling air in from the outside instead of pulling water, you know, creating a vacuum inside, which would pull the dirty water back. So that's what this thing does. I think code says it has to be at least 12 inches above grade. Ours is going to be, you know, well above that, so it'll be fine. But the reason is because if this is below grade, below the water level, then it can't pull air in, right? I mean, it'd be pulling water in. So it's a necessary device when you're hooking up something like this. Then we're coming out of here and going back. We got to go back from male threaded to slip to get back to our 1-inch slip. Then here we have we're going from slip to female threaded this time because we want to connect it to our filter. This is just a basic, Rainbird filter that's going to catch some of the particulates in this screen. We pull up a decent amount of sand in our well, and this will catch that and prevent it from going in the system and clogging up emitters and stuff like that. It's just something you can unscrew and easily clean out if you need to. So we're going into that. This will screw onto there, and then we got to get back to slip, so this will screw back onto there on that side. So now we're back at 1-inch PVC, and here's the other union. What this does is the same thing as this. So imagine here's 2 unions. If I want to take all this just out of the system without cutting any pipe, I can just unscrew these 2. That comes off. Unscrew this. That comes off, right? Imagine this is glued and this is glued, but now this just lifts completely out. And I can, like if this breaks or something happens with this, I can just take it all apart without having to cut anything. That's the idea. Then we're gonna come out of that union into a 90-degree 1-inch elbow so that we can go back down toward the ground. Then we'll come down here and hit this T. Now, one leg of this T I'm just going to stub out for now with like a little 12-inch piece and cap it in case I want to add a zone to the irrigation system later. But the other side of the T will go to the first valve box, and that'll be the first zone of the irrigation setup. So that's basically what we need to do. We're going to connect all this behind the well house like we just looked at, where that existing hose bib is. So let's get started on that. All right, so the first thing we got to do is dig down to where the pipe comes out of the well house so we can cut it and connect our stuff. All right, so I got it dug out. We ran into a few surprises. First of all, this pipe that comes from the well and connects to this riser, I thought just elbowed up here and it terminated up here and that was it. But it turns out this is a T, and the 1-inch pipe also goes down off this T and connects to a 1-inch pipe going this way. And I have no idea what that connects to. It's probably important. It could be feeding the house. I don't really think we need to worry about what it is. We just need to preserve it. So, you know, there's a couple options. Like I could have, at first I thought, well, let me just dig this down and cut it here below the T, and I'll cut this off, and then I'll just put a new T on here, and you know, I can do whatever I want above that and the rest will stay the same. The problem is there's a bunch of massive tree roots from this water oak here, and I mean, I could cut them out, but I think an easier way to still get what I want, which is to move, basically to move this against here, and also to preserve this bottom piece and then continue on the top with our irrigation system. The easiest way to do all that is to do like I wanted to. I'll come with a T here, right? This is reduced to 3/4 on top, and come up here with a 3/4 inch riser and have the hose bib here strapped to the well house. Then here, because I have to reconnect this somehow after I do that, I'll use this compression fitting, which allows me to basically cut the pipe somewhere like here and then connect it together. You know, normally like the pipe's not going to move that much. You wouldn't be able to pull it back, put it in the fitting, and then you don't have that kind of leeway, but with this you can do that. So I'm going to use this to reconnect this after I cut it, right? So now the only thing that'll change from the way it is now is it'll look just like this. I mean, this will be here, but you'll have this coming up to have my hose bib riser on the wall. Then once we get here, all this T and all this will stay the same, and I'll come up a little bit and put a 90-degree elbow on it going this way, all right? Then I'll have a short piece of pipe here, and then I'll have another 90 like this coming up, okay? And then here, I went ahead and dug like a 24-inch hole, and this is where I'm gonna put my 4x4. That PVB and all that, well, especially the PVB, is really heavy, so you gotta support it with something. The PVC alone can't hold it like this, something like this. So we're gonna come over here and elbow up, straight up that 4x4, which we're about to install next, actually. And then all our PVB and all that will be attached to that. So that's the plan. I would have put it closer, but there's actually a concrete slab here from the house that was destroyed by Katrina. I guess it was like part of the garage or something, just looking at where it is. But I didn't feel like busting all that up, and there's a bunch of tree roots there. So I'm just going to do a short run over here to get us over to something that I could actually dig down enough for the 4x4. So that's the plan. I think before we do anything else, I want to set the 4x4 in place. I'm not going to pour concrete around it yet. I just want to set it there and brace it so that we have a target to shoot for when we start running this, and you know, we'll know kind of where we're aiming at as we build the rest of it. So we're going to do that now. All right, we're about 2 feet down now in this hole for our 4x4. I'm going to put a couple inches of pea gravel in it, and then we'll set the 4x4 in and brace it temporarily so we can see where it's at. That ought to be pretty good. Okay, now that we've got the 4x4 set in place and braced off, I went ahead and dry fitted our assembly. The water will come up through this ball valve, through the PVB, through the filter, and then back down and into the ground, out into the garden for the irrigation system. The only difference between what you see here and what we saw a minute ago laid out on the concrete is I've added a union here so that way I have a union on either side of the filter and a union on either side of the PVB. That just gives me a little bit more flexibility in case, for example, I want to remove the filter by itself without unmounting the PVB, or I need to separate these two for some other reason. It's not entirely necessary, but I had the fitting, so why not? The next thing we need to do is deal with this existing pipe. We're going to cut it where it comes under this wall of the well house, attach our new hose bib riser, and then tie that back into the T here, and then elbow over to the post so that we can come up into the ball valve and into the irrigation system. To do that, I'm going to need to shut off the well. So let me go do that. I'll flush the water out of the system, and then we'll start cutting. All right, I turned the well off, and we can confirm that there's no water in the system, mostly by turning this on, right? Fully on, so we know we're off. Now we need to cut this, but to know exactly where I need to cut it, I went ahead and dry fitted the riser. So this is the hose bib riser. Obviously it's going to be mounted to the wall. You can see why I wanted it against the wall, especially being 3/4. It's not quite as stout as the 1 inch, but also the 1 inch, if you are having to pull hoses around, even with the 1 inch, it's putting wear and tear on these joints and on the pipe when you max out the hose and you start pulling on this. So mounting it to this will help a lot with that, especially being 3/4. And I've got a ball valve here. I'm gonna put one on each riser so that if I need to change this, I can just turn this off without having to turn off the whole irrigation system. This will have its own shut off. And now I see where I need to cut this horizontal pipe to install this T. So let me mark that. Looks like about right here. Okay. Now that I know where that needs to be cut, we can cut it. But first, what I want to do, since I've got all this lined up exactly how I want it with the angles and everything, I'm just gonna take this marker and mark. This could be a little bit more this way. Yeah. I'm just gonna mark where they connect, like a line across each, a straight line, so that when I go to glue it, I know exactly how it lines up. I don't have to think about it. And I'll do that everywhere. Just putting a mark across each connection down here. Same thing. Now I'll glue this together. I'm using this Blue Monster thread sealant on any threaded stuff and just regular purple primer and glue on everything else. See, now I can look at those black marks and just line them up. So we need to cut this horizontal pipe here where I've marked it so we can install our T and riser. Now it often happens when you're coming 90 degrees under a wall and going up that you can't easily get your tool back in here far enough to cut it off, because you'd have to dig out a lot more. So one trick I learned is, believe it or not, you can take a piece of string and cut it with that. I know it sounds crazy, but I guess the heat of the friction, if you just put your string where you want it cut, pull it tight, and then just kind of saw it, go slow at first so that it actually stays in line. But once you get it started, sometimes it takes a second to get it started, but there it goes. Once you get it started and make a groove, you just saw it back and forth, and the friction creates enough heat to melt the pipe. Here's some water that was still in it. Whew, this pipe's taking a while to cut. It usually doesn't take this long. I wonder if it's the type of pipe they used, because I've cut 1.5 inch stuff, even 2 inch, that didn't take this long to cut through it. Or maybe my string's too thick, but it's cutting. Like starting a survival fire, huh? There we go. Now, was it necessary in this case? Probably not. I probably could have got the cutter in there. I mean, certainly an angle grinder would have cut it off in this case, but I've had situations before where you've got a bunch of pipes right next to each other, and angle grinder is pretty dangerous in those situations if you only want to cut one of them, you know. But this is a lot cleaner of a cut too. Angle grinder can kind of chew up the ends of it quite a bit. And there's no way you're getting a portable bandsaw in something like there at that angle. So just a little trick. It does take a little more time, but sometimes it's necessary to know how to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this back a little bit to give us some breathing room here. Now we need to attach our tee to this, so I'm gonna wipe it off a little bit. All kind of tree roots here. Wipe this off a little bit. Since this has been in the ground 20 years, I'm gonna go ahead and just very lightly sand up this edge. Just so that we got a nice clean surface to glue to. All right. All right, that's gonna work good. I'll strap this to the wall later. It's not really a hurry. I'm not gonna be putting the hose on it anytime soon. Now, we need to install this compression fitting. So we're gonna need a little piece of pipe here. Let me get that. Could actually use the piece I just cut off, but I guess let's use some new pipe. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the idea with these things is they have a O-ring, I guess you call it, this rubber thing on the inside. And that's what makes the seal. So the pipes are gonna go in here. This is like gonna be the pipe, right? And then, oops. We put this on one end first before we do anything. Like that. And then we're gonna do the same thing here with the other one. Like this, right? We'll glue this to here, like this. See? So now, if we glue this in here, that'll go there. We'll push this up. How much is that in there? That's in there plenty. Push this up to here. And then we'll tighten these down like this. Once we tighten these down, those rubber O-rings are going to create the seal, and this shouldn't leak. Okay, now we should be able to push these O-rings up flush and then screw them down Screw them, tighten them both evenly, of course. The nice thing about these is if it's leaking, you don't got to cut anything. You just got to turn the water off and unscrew it and redo it however you did it. I've had to do that before. Might tighten those down a little bit with the channel locks. I'm not cranking it down too much, but I do want that to have a good seal. I mean, we're like 3 inches below grade here, so if there is a leak, it's not going to be some huge process to dig down and fix it, but still try to get it right the first time. Now we're good up to here, so we're leaving this T intact because who knows what this is. I even discovered another pipe over here, although now that I look at it closer, that's conduit, so who knows what that is. Maybe it's the power for this, running back outside the fence and back down to the breaker box because it's on that side of the house. But anyway, we're leaving all that intact. We're gonna cut this here as low as makes sense because I don't want this to be above grade. So it's gonna come like this. So I wanna get this as low as possible. We don't have to worry about frost line or anything like that here, obviously, so I don't, you know, and nobody's gonna be driving over this ever, so I don't have to worry too much, but I would like it as low as possible. Maybe right here. Can I go even lower? Something like that. Cut it here. Okay. I'm gonna sandpaper that a little bit because that looks grimy. All right, so I got this dry fitted. I recut this stub above the T, like as low as I possibly could, because I'm trying to keep this pipe below grade. It was like up here and here's the ground. So I lowered that a little bit and I've got this dry fitted. We're coming over, elbowing up into this. Now, in terms of gluing it, what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna start up here and work my way down, gluing all this as I go. And then I'll glue this elbow, and then with this out of it, I'll take this out, glue this elbow onto here, and then I'm gonna glue this to the T, and then that should firm everything up. This is partly why I wanted to go ahead and secure the PVB on the 4x4, because it gave us a reference point to run this other stuff. Otherwise, we're kind of guessing as to where we want it to go, and then the 4x4 might end up in some weird place where we have to do a lot of undesirable plumbing to get it to fit everything on there. So here's where that marker comes in handy, because I need to glue this elbow to this, but to know the exact angle that this needs to be, I need this pipe on here. But if I leave this pipe on here, then I can't take this off and glue this. So there's probably other ways to do it. I'm not a plumber, but what I'm gonna do is just make sure it's where it needs to be and then mark it like this. So that Now I can take this off. I think I'll go ahead and mark this one too, since I know that's where that needs to go. Okay. Now I can glue just this elbow on here. Yeah, because I can move this a little bit and then I'll have leeway. Just making sure I'm not gluing myself into a hole here. It's easy to do. Line up those marks. When you stick them together, always twist them like at least a quarter turn so it spreads that glue all the way around the surface of the joint. And then these have been trying to pop out on me, so I've been holding them like 10 to 20 seconds, holding tight pressure on them, let that glue kind of set up for a second. Otherwise they'll pop out. Line up our marks after we turn it a little bit. And now all we have to do for this bottom part is connect these two. So let's do that. Now we've got everything connected, our new hose bib. We put the compression fitting on. We came off this T over, up, into the PVB. So we're at the PVB now. All right, I just let all that we glued stiffen up for about 20 minutes. And now the only thing left to do in this video is to glue all this together. So I'm gonna do that now. All right, it's the next day. We got rained out last night, but before the rain started, I did have to turn the well back on so we would have water to cook dinner and everything. And when I turned it back on, there were no leaks up to here. So everything that was in place before we started cutting all this is fine. This hose bib is fine. It's got water, it's not leaking. So everything up to here is good. When I came out this morning to test everything from the PVB on, I opened this valve and water started pouring out of the PVB, not from the joints, from the PVB itself, from the bonnet up top and from the test cocks on the side. And I thought, that's strange. But I looked it up, and I guess these PVBs are expecting to have, pressure on the, like, I just had this hanging here like we left it yesterday, with nothing right here. It was just dumping out on the ground. So I think that's the problem. So what I've done is I added the downward run and elbowed off into the first horizontal underground run of the irrigation system. There's gonna be a valve right there somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where I wanna put it, but I've just capped this pipe right there. I'm not sure if it's on camera from that angle, but that's capped. So I'm letting this dry for a couple hours and then we're gonna test it again. But even though water was pouring out of the PVB, none of this seemed to be leaking right here. So all these joints seem okay. And water was coming out of here. The problem is it was just coming out of the PVB too. So we're gonna retest that in about an hour and a half. In the meantime, what I was thinking is, whether the PVB is messed up or not, the position is going to be the same on this post. So I think we're good to go ahead and mix a little concrete and put in the bottom of the post hole. I'm not going to put a ton, because in case I ever have to move the post, I don't want to have to dig out, like half a yard of concrete. So I'm just going to mix a little bit in a bucket and dump it in there. Let's do that while we wait for this new glue to dry. And once it's dried, we'll come out and retest the system. This ain't going to take that much concrete. I'm not pouring it that high. I don't want to encase any of those pipes. We get to use our new hose bib. That's probably enough just to keep it from moving around any. All right, this additional pipe has been drying for over 2 hours, so I think we're good now to slowly open this ball valve and see what happens to the PVB. There's still water leaking out of the top. But when I open it up all the way, it stopped. So that makes sense, because until we had full pressure in this downward part, it wasn't able to equalize. See, these PVBs are kind of interesting. I guess the more I thought about it, it makes sense what it was doing. This is one of the few pieces of plumbing that is actually exposed to the air, and it has to be. So when we had this completely open, this could see the atmosphere, and that means it doesn't work right, because the way this is designed, it's supposed to have full pressure on this side, full pressure on this side. When it does, then it's not sucking in air. But if it doesn't have full pressure on this side, then it gets all wonky on the inside, the internal pressures, and that's why it was leaking. And you notice when I had this just cracked, this ball valve just partially opened, that it was still leaking. But when I opened it all the way, it stopped leaking because it had full pressure on here. So that all makes sense. I just never had dealt with one of these PVBs before, so it took a minute to figure it out. This is all wet, so it'd be a little hard to see a leak, but I'll let it dry and just confirm it later. I think we're good though. All right, I think we accomplished what we set out to do in this video. We successfully installed a new 1-inch line and connected it to the existing water supply, including backflow prevention and a filter that not only protects the water that's going to go into the irrigation system, but also the clean drinking water coming from the well. We ran into a few surprises along the way, but that often happens in projects like this. Now in the next video, we're going to dig the trenches so that we can continue to lay this 1-inch pipe everywhere it needs to go. And that's going to be probably the most laborious part of this project, because digging, hundreds of feet of trench is going to take a while. But we're also going to install the valve boxes and the valves at each zone where they're going to be in the finished system in that video. So I hope to see you then. Thanks for watching, and until next time, good luck out there.